Hey there, Pride Plant Girl here. Today I'm going to be working on a little bit of winter sowing. Winter sowing is when you use some sort of a jug, bottle, container that will let the sunshine in and hold soil and a little bit of moisture, and you plant your seeds in it and you leave it outside starting in the winter. So the point of doing winter sowing would be if you just simply don't have room to start your plants inside, you don't have a space for that, this can be an alternative. Also, it can help with things like native plants to have their cold treatment without you having to have baggies of soil and things in your freezer or refrigerator or whatever it needs. This will give them that chance to have that cold treatment. And it can, some people like to just have the plants come up naturally on their own as the weather warms up and is ready for it. So it's kind of just a hands-off starting your plants. You can start a lot of seeds through winter sowing. Your plants that are native to your area or perennial to your area are the most common plants to use native sowing for. Some people do start their warmer crops or annual plants, but you want to do that later in the winter, closer to spring, but before your average last frost, when you won't be getting extreme cold weather that you'll have to protect tender plants from. I find personally for me that I'm happiest using this with things like native plants or plants that I'm looking for a long-term enjoyment out of, and I'm not really looking to have a lot happen with them in their first season, because I find here by the time they get warm enough to germinate and grow that it's already later in the season, and so it doesn't work as well for me to have things started that I want growing, flowering, producing food, whatnot, in that same season. It does work, but it's going to give me a later start than if I can start things inside. And since I have the space inside, I would prefer to start most things indoors. It's a lot more controlled that way. Some people love to start everything in the with the winter sowing method. So I thought I would share this with you, and then you can choose which method you prefer. I'm going to be starting some of my native plants, and I'll just be doing a couple today. I just have a few minutes, so I've run up to the greenhouse. I don't know if you can see behind me, but we've been actually having rain, which this is Saskatchewan, Canada. It's early February, so normally this would be just all snow behind me, but we actually had rain all day yesterday and through the night, so it's crazy weather. Warm, but we'll still have plenty of cold nights and days to give the native plants I'm going to sow some cold treatment before they're ready to come up. So when you're sowing, like I said before, you need a jug or container of some sort that will let the light into the container. You don't want something dark that sun can't get through. You can take milk jugs is one of the most common things, but you could also use like a Rubbermaid or some sort of container with a clear lid and use that. You want it to have some depth to it so that there's room for the roots and for the soil to hold moisture. You're going to have to do a few things to the container, so don't expect to be using it again for anything, and you're going to want to take the lid off. So the first thing you want to do is you can peel the label. It's not strictly necessary. You'll see most of it stayed on. But then I'm not going to find that label has washed off with the weather and just floating around my yard. So I like to do that. Then you're going to take your container and you're going to take a sharp knife and cut from about where the handle joins all the way around. So about the midsection all the way to the handle without cutting all the way through. So you have a bit of a hinge at the handle point there. And you're going to take your knife and just poke a couple of holes in the bottom. And some people like to poke a few holes in the top as well. We aren't normally a very moist climate, so I don't find the holes on top as important, but it's something to do if you think you're going to have a lot of rain in that and you want to let some more moisture come out the top a little bit, just let more air circulation. Because we've been having an odd year, I will put a few holes just to be on the safe side. So you need your jug, you need your knife or something sharp to cut your jug with. You're going to need some sort of good strong tape that's going to stand up to weather to tape this all back together again. You're going to need a good permanent marker, and I also like to use the marker to label the outside, but I also like to have tags for the inside, and I've used a garden marker, so the marker shouldn't fade very much, and I also put a tag on the inside just in case this does fade or wash off. Somehow it does happen. So then I have just a kind of a backup tag identification. You're going to obviously need soil. Now you don't want like seed starting mix. You don't want something that's really light and fluffy. You want a good potting soil or heavier soil. You don't want to go out and grab garden soil straight up out of the ground, but you do need something that's a little bit heavier and is going to hold moisture a little bit more, because these aren't going to be getting babied in the same way. I'm also going to be putting a little bit of vermiculite on top of my seeds once I'm done, but that's not something that's necessary. It's just something that I like to do, and it's just for helping to hold that moisture a little bit more. And then having a spray bottle or mister is also a handy thing to have. So otherwise, it's just kind of basic seed starting. So I'm just going to prep my jug and show you how I do one, show you some of the seeds I'm starting. And by then, I'm probably going to have to just get through a couple more and take off for my next project of the day. Okay, so now that I have my jug prepped here, I'm just going to fill it with some potting mix. And you want to give it several inches of depth, because your seeds, your plants, once they start growing, could be in here for a little while until you can get them out and planted, depending on your weather conditions and when they germinate. So just packing this down so that it doesn't settle on me once the seeds are in. I'm not making it super tight, but just enough so it doesn't settle. And then I'll just sprinkle some more along the top here, a couple more handfuls. And then again, just give it a gentle tamp so we don't have the soil settle on us. So this is ready for winter sowing now. The things I'm planning on winter sowing, like I said, are my native plants. So I have Heartleaf Alexander, Prairie Drop Seed, Hairy Golden Aster, Prairie Crocus, Lindley's Aster, Mountain Mint, Asclepias Cinderella, that's a milkweed, Tufted Fleabane, Prairie Coneflower, and some little blue stem. So let's start with the Tufted Fleabane. So that's what it looks like. And there's some of the seeds there for you. Like a lot of native plants, these don't want to be planted very deep, and I'm just going to gently sprinkle them around on the soil. You can make perfect spacing with winter sowing. You don't want to overcrowd your container, because, like I said, they're going to be in this enclosed space probably for a while, and you don't want them to get fungal diseases and issues like that. This is some much older seed, so I am going to go a little heavy because I think it's probably not going to have great germination rates on it. And there's a lot of chaff in here, so I'm not sure how much actual seed I'm getting in there anyways. But I've just kind of sprinkled it on top. Now this only wants to be an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch deep, which isn't very deep. So for the Lindley's Aster, I'm just going to take some of this vermiculite and I'm just going to sprinkle it in a nice layer on top. You could put a little bit of soil on. Now this is actually, I'm saying soil, but this is actually a peat-based mix that I have here. It's not actual dirt. So it's mostly peat moss with a little bit of perlite and vermiculite. So then you want to make sure that the vermiculite or the top dressing and all the soil is nice and moist. So once your soil is nice and moist, we're ready to close it up. Oh wait, we better put our tag in here. So what did I say we had there? Tufted Fleabane. Let me find my tag. Don't want to forget that. So here's the tag, Tufted Fleabane, and I'll just stick that in the back. And like I said, that's just double assurance. So if the labeling on the outside wears off or washes off, I'll know what it is. Now these jugs have been out in my greenhouse, and like I said, we've had a lot of kind of cool, damp weather, so there's a little condensation on the outside here, so, and a little soil for me filling it. So I'm just going to give it a little wipe, so hopefully the tape adheres well. I'm going to take my tape. Now, you don't need to have fancy owl tape, but it sure makes it fun, right? I stole this from my daughter, her crafting bucket. She's in university now. She doesn't really use this stuff, so we'll use some of it up. Well, so I'm just going to put a few pieces on initially because I just find it easier to kind of get it lined up that way. Hopefully it sticks in the cold dampness here. Piece doesn't want to stick. So then just taper all down so you get it all stuck closed again. Well, there, hopefully that's all stuck on. I have it taped all the way around. You don't have to tape at the back where the handle is, but I was just trying to get some good adhesion here in this cool space. It's about 1 degree Celsius out here right now. So that's all secured. I can lift it by the handle. It's not falling apart, so that's a good sign. So I'm going to label the container Tufted Fleabane. And today is February 5th of 24. Now obviously I'll know what year it is, and I'll make a note of that in my garden journal as well. But that just helps, so when you have a bunch of these jugs going and you can't open them up yet, hopefully the writing will still be there so you can see what you have growing to see if it's germinated or not. Now, these are going to sit outside in the elements to go through freezing, thawing, rain, sunshine, whatnot. And the lid is off to let excess moisture kind of evaporate out, but also to let snow and rain inside. If you don't get a lot of snow and rain, and it seems like it's maybe drying out, you can just take something that has a gentle mist or spray and just go inside and give it a few sprays, you know, once a month or whatever, depending on what your weather is like. Just depends what your weather is like and how dry it's getting in there, because the seeds need to have some dampness to them at all times. And that's really how simple winter sowing is. So like I said, you could use, these jugs work quite well, but you know, you can use like the kind of clear juice jugs. You just need something that's going to have a fair amount of soil holding capacity in it, and that will let some sunshine in. Now, even though these are, I don't know, kind of speckled, they're not like super clear plastic, that still works. Enough sun will still get in here. So I'm going to be setting these just outside of my greenhouse. If you have a lot of rodents or things that might try and get into here, maybe you want to set them up on something or put some chicken wire or something around them. But for the most part, they're usually pretty carefree, and as long as they're taped up well, usually not too much is going to get in there. Then you just wait, and once it starts to get kind of consistently warming up, as the winter is turning to spring, you might want to start giving them a little extra check to see if there's any germination happening. Just have a look inside and see if you see any little green bits popping up there. Once you have quite a bit of growth in there and the days are warm enough for whatever that particular seed is, and then you could take off the tape and start propping the lid open during the day and then closing it up at night if the nights are still getting cool. And that will help to just kind of acclimate them. But they don't need a lot of acclimation, not like a plant that's been grown inside, because they've been outside the whole time. So they're getting those highs and lows in temperature. The only thing that I think helping to acclimate them a little bit more is giving them some of that air movement, because they're in a very enclosed space. They're not getting the same air movement. And wind can really damage plants, especially if you're living in a windy climate like I do. So you want something where you want to give them a little chance to get used to the wind a little bit at a time. Also, wind is very drying, and they're used to being in this very moist, enclosed, controlled kind of space like this. So just having them open for a little bit during the day before you put them and plant them right out into the landscape can be beneficial for the plants. And then all that's left to do after you've given them that little bit of hardening off is just simply take them, separate them out. The roots will probably be all tangled together a little bit, but just pull them apart, you know, and you don't have to be super gentle, but make sure you have some roots attached to each piece that you're going to plant, and put them out in your landscape or containers, garden, whatever you're growing and wherever you want it. And that's all it takes to get some winter sowing done. So give it a try and let me know what you think of it in the comments down below. Now, like I said, I'm just going to be doing a few of these at a time as I have the time to do it and the jug supply for it. I'm short about 4 jugs right now, but we'll have that soon enough. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.